Hi, I'm Christy and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you've never been here before. So today I'm going to be doing my author's guide on Elizabeth O'Rourke. So Elizabeth O'Rourke is a author that I first tried out at the beginning of this year. I fell in love with her books. The first one I read was Waking Olivia, and then from there I just wanted to read everything else that she writes. So over the past few months I've devoured the rest of her backlist. Last month in July I just finished the last 3 books I needed to read to be caught up on her backlist. So since I've read all of her backlist now, I wanted to do a fun author guide so you can get an idea of what her books are like, maybe see which ones you want to pick up or figure out which ones you haven't picked up yet that you want to check out. Also coming up this month in August, on August 19th, which I'll put the time card and info here, Jess from Peace Love Books actually invited me to be a guest co-host along with herself and Tori from Novel Life, and we're going to be interviewing Elizabeth O'Rourke on Jess's channel, which I'm super excited for the interview and to chat with Jess and Tori and Elizabeth, of course. And if you happen to be watching this video with me after that interview has already aired, I'm going to add in the video link to it on Jess's channel so you can watch the replay. All right, so first up, this is the first book that I started with Elizabeth O'Rourke, and it's Waking Olivia. And this one is actually a special edition cover that Hello Lovely Box did earlier this year. So there is that cover. I really love the colors and the whole design of this one. So these 2 books actually exist in the same world. The characters you're gonna meet in this book, you actually first meet them in Waking Olivia. So the heroine of this book is Olivia's college cross-country teammate and friend. And then the hero of this book is also Olivia's brother-in-law. So you can definitely read these both as standalones, but if you read Waking Olivia first and then you jump into Drowning Aaron, you'll already be familiar with the characters a little bit, and then you'll also see Olivia and her life kind of caught up in this book. So in Waking Olivia, the heroine's name is Olivia, and she is a college cross-country runner. And at the beginning of the story, she actually just got kicked off of her team and has moved to a new college and has a new team and coach. And this is when she meets Will, who is her new coach and also the hero of the book. So in the beginning of this, Will and Olivia definitely butt heads. He can't understand why she's self-sabotaging herself, or what he sees it as, that because she'll come to meets late. She'll be exhausted because she just ran miles and miles beforehand. Yeah, and he just can't understand why are you doing this, to yourself and the team. So then we learn in Olivia's POV, and then eventually when she tells Will as well, that she actually sleep runs. So she'll wake up in the middle of the night, and instead of sleepwalking, she sleep runs, and she'll end up miles and miles away from her house. Sometimes she doesn't even know where she's at. She'll be in the middle of a field. She doesn't have her keys, she doesn't have a phone, and she's just kind of lost. So Will ends up kind of stepping in and kind of babysitting her at night when she sleeps to make sure that she doesn't take off. So he ends up staying with her some of the nights. He even sets her up with his mom at her house and farm. In this book, both of the characters are actually going through a lot. Olivia obviously sleep runs, and so she has some past trauma and things like that we learn about in the story as it unfolds of why she's doing that. And then Will has all the pressures and the weight of the world on his shoulders, trying to take care of his family, the family farm. He's trying to deal with the life choices he's making after his father's death. And in this one, the romance between Will and Olivia is a bit forbidden, just because, that whole student coach dynamic, not because of their age. He actually is just a couple years older than her, but because of their school regulations and such, coaches and students can't date. But the slow burn buildup in this story was really great. And I really liked seeing the friendship and the relationship that Will and Olivia kind of form over time. There's definitely some angst in there. I loved seeing how Will's family took Olivia in, and the relationship that she forms with his mother was really sweet to see. Will is also a climber, which was pretty cool. And so he ends up introducing the climbing world to Olivia and takes her on some climbs as well. So yeah, this is one I would definitely recommend to start with if you're going to jump into Elizabeth O'Rourke books. So while both standalones, this Drowning Aaron does exist in the same world as the Waking Olivia. Like I mentioned, the characters you meet in that book are the hero and heroine of this book. So I actually ended up just doing a recap of Drowning Aaron, Undertow, and No One But Us, the last 3 books I had to read for Elizabeth O'Rourke last month. So I still have that video clip saved, so I'm going to work smarter, not harder here, and I'm just going to insert past Christy recapping those books for you. This book exists in the same world as her other book, Waking Olivia. We meet both of the characters of this book in that book. So in this one, the heroine ran cross-country and college with Olivia in the first book. And then also the hero of this book is the brother-in-law of Olivia. This book is very angsty. It deals with heavier emotions and topics. So in this one, the hero and heroine met 4 years ago in the past. They worked for a summer together at a bike kind of tour rental company. And this book is told in the different timelines. So in the past, the hero is working there, and he's just about to leave for Italy for the fall and take this bike touring job over there. So he's never been one to date the same girl twice, especially with that upcoming trip and him leaving the country for 4 years. But from the moment he meets Erin, who is like the new co-worker there, he's definitely like, I want to know more about her. So he knows that she's like the relationship forever type of girl instead of the like one night stand. So he does, of course, the classic thing where I want her so much, but I'm going to be super rude to her to push her away from me. Heroine is kind of on the other side of that, and she was really crushing on him. But of course, once he starts acting like a jerk towards her, she starts kind of like backing away from him. So then, of course, the hero, by the time he is ready to finally make a move and realizes, you know what, she could be the one, it's a little too late because now she falls for his childhood best friend. So in present day, we have the heroine engaged to the hero's childhood best friend. And in this, the heroine has been engaged for 18 months, but she hasn't really wanted to like set a date, make any wedding plans. So she's kind of just putting it off. The hero ends up showing back up from Italy. He has been there for 4 years and he just moved back. So the heroine's fiance actually tells the hero like, hey, you can move into our pool house. Like, I'm about to be out of the country on some work trips. Like, you can live with Erin, the heroine. So while living together with the hero, the heroine starts to realize that her and her fiance are not on good terms. They're not in a good place. She's actually started to only focus on what makes him happy instead of, you know, looking at anything that has made her happy over the years. She has kind of pushed all of that away. She starts to realize that her own happiness has kind of taken a backseat, and she kind of focuses on everybody else's needs and wants, whether it's her fiance or her parents, her brother, like her boss, like all of these things. So while she's hanging out with the hero, she ends up realizing, you know, how much she's been settling in life and kind of she's just not happy. And so there is no cheating in this one between her and the hero, while her fiance and her are still a thing. So again, if angsty isn't your thing, this book probably is not for you. I really love that about Elizabeth O'Rourke's writings. Like, her books just always really deliver for me, and I like the angst that we get from the writing and the characters. So in this one, I really liked seeing Erin. She definitely has the weight of the world on her shoulders. She looks after her parents and her brother. Her brother, she's always like lending money to. Her father is an alcoholic, and so she's always having to save him in the middle of the night, like go and pick him up at the bar, go and find him, like when he disappears, all of these things. And I really liked how the hero kind of just wanted Erin to live her best life and like have all these things that make her happy instead of always putting other people's happiness first. Which, don't get me wrong, the hero definitely has his faults. He's not perfect. He pushes her away a lot, but he's also kind of like possessive on the other hand. But yeah, I just really liked seeing how this whole relationship played out. And yeah, so this book was actually first published back in 2013. It was the author's second book at the time, and the title for it was Bloom. Then 5 years later, she ended up rewriting it, giving it dual POV, making like massive changes to the storyline and gave it like a whole brand new ending. And so she republished it as No One But Us. So I will say, if drama and angst are not your thing, probably skip this book. But for me, give me all the drama, give me all the angst. Because this one is a best friend's older brother with tons and tons of angst. So the heroine in this, she has known the hero her entire life. She's always crushed on him. He's always come to her rescue. And now she finds out that she's about to spend the entire summer with him. So when the story starts, the heroine is 19. She was working or interning at a news channel. Her father was like a popular news channel guy and kind of got her an in for this internship. And some pictures are actually published of her and her boss around town, and people assume that they're having an affair. So rumors start to swirl. The guy is like a married man, all these things. And so she actually ends up getting the brunt of all the anger and speculation, and so she ends up getting let go from her job, which she is like horrified because that's not the case. They're not together. She sees this guy as like one of her dad's friends. He's her dad's age. He's known her since she was a child, so she like can't believe this is happening. So on top of that, when she calls her dad to tell him what's going on, he's like, you know what, I got my own scandal going on right now. Like, I just got this girl knocked up, so like I need you to just lay low, keep out of the public eye for the summer, and let this all blow over. So she ends up calling her childhood best friend, who tells her like, hey, we're at the beach house for the summer, you should come, like my brother's gonna be here as well, and like we'll just have a fun time. So the heroine hasn't seen the hero in 5 years. Like, the last time she saw him, I think she was like 13 or 14, and now she's 19, so she's like very excited at the chance to see him now that she's like grown up and all of that. The hero is going through his own rough time. His parents have always wanted him to become a lawyer, and he doesn't want to do that, so he's kind of wanting to drop out of law school. He doesn't want to follow in the family footsteps. He doesn't want to become a lawyer. He doesn't want to own the law firm that his parents want to leave him, and he has all of this going on. On top of this, his mom and parents kind of try to guilt trip him into feeling bad and becoming a lawyer anyways. Like, his mom does some very toxic, unhealthy behavior, which is like she starves herself and makes herself sick to make her kids then make the choices that she wants them to make. So that whole aspect was definitely unhealthy. And then of course the heroine also has issues with her parents. So her dad's definitely like does his own thing, only looks out for himself. And then her mom also was kind of like that as well. Her mom was a supermodel and made some interesting life choices as well. So the heroine definitely raised herself. Her mom was like a supermodel with like a super famous like bikini poster. And so the heroine has always dealt with men kind of coming onto her in a disgusting way because of like how her mom looked and, you know, assuming she's the same and just kind of like, you know, just being super gross. So this one, there's definitely a lot going on. Because not only do we have both family dramas from both sides of them, both of their exes end up coming to the beach house for the summer. There's outside people getting involved in the relationship. Her best friend kind of treats her horribly and does some super shady things. And then everybody assuming the worst about the heroine because of how her mother was and the choices that she made and very like sexualizing of her. But yeah, a lot. But if I ignore all of that and focus on just the romance and the relationship between the hero and the heroine, I really loved it. So the hero is the type of hero who definitely like pushes away his feelings, has a reason for everything. Like, we can't be together because she's too young. We can't be together because my parents won't like this. We can't be together because of X, Y, and Z. We do get some really yummy angst in here, lots of great sexual tension. He becomes very possessive and growly, which I know is not for everybody, but I love that. And once they do give in, there is some fun like sneaking around times because they don't want anybody to know that they are seeing one another. The heroine, though, is someone who has never had anybody ever put her first in life and care about her first. So I do wish we got a little bit more from the hero of kind of, you know, making up for that fact of her life and putting her first. So I do wish we got a little bit more from him. Next, I read Undertow by Elizabeth O'Rourke. This is, I believe, her first book, and it was the last book I read to be caught up on her entire backlist. This one is a second chance romance between childhood best friends who are from like very different worlds. So in this one, the heroine has grown up very privileged and wealthy. Every summer she goes and stays with her grandparents who own like this beach house, which is really like a mansion. And so she goes there every summer with her brother. And for all the times that they've gone there, she's always met the hero, Nate, who he is actually lives there permanently. He is her grandparents' housekeeper's son. So they grew up together. They spend every summer together. We get a lot of flashbacks of all of their times growing up together, and they've just always been really close. And of course, once they become teens, all of those feelings start to become a thing. He's like her first everything, but then they end up getting torn apart when they were 17. So again, this story is told with flashbacks of them falling for one another, and then it's current day, which is 5 years later. So the hero and heroine, they haven't seen or spoken to one another in 5 years, but now the heroine is back at her grandparents' beach house for the summer. So in this one, the heroine has always definitely felt pressured by her parents and their friends to live a certain way, be a certain way, date certain people, have a certain job, all of that type of expectations. So they definitely have all these expectations of what her life is going to look like and, you know, all the choices she needs to make for her future. So while there for the summer, she actually ends up deciding, you know, she's gonna like casually date one of these other friends that she grew up with who his parents are like in the same circle of friends that her parents are. So while she wants this to stay casual, like her family definitely jumps on this and is like, oh, this is perfect. Like, this is your future. This is exactly who you should be dating. And she definitely realizes she's about to be pulled under by everybody else's expectations of her life, like unless she says or does something. Everybody in her life is definitely a lot and the worst. Besides her grandfather, he was great. The hero even compares like her life and family and all of their expectations. Like, are you living like in the 1800s? Like, why is your family making all these choices for you? Also, like, you're kind of mafia-esque. Like, you guys are all within the same like circle of wealthy friends. Like, what's going on with your family? So I really love romances told like this with flashbacks and kind of meeting over the summer. This definitely reminded me of a ton of other books that I've read, but this one I really liked. I really loved the hero in this. You definitely get the feeling that the hero and heroine are meant to be, but there's just all these other like external things trying to pull them apart, which is mainly her family and how she's being influenced by them as well, which I mean, I get it, but also like, girl, you're 22, like make your own choices and like cut this family out of your life. I mean, I see it both ways. But also, like, this hero is here and he's perfect for you. Like, can you just go with him and be happy? So there is cheating in this book, just not between the actual endgame couple. The next up, I'm going to talk about the Parallel series, and this is a time travel series, and it crosses over 4 books right now. So the first 2 books in the series are Parallel and Intersect, and these are actually a duet. So Parallel will leave off on a cliffhanger, and you're definitely going to want to pick up Intersect after. And then the 3rd and 4th book of the series, Across Time and Across Eternity, they do the same thing and on a cliffhanger, and they are a duet as well, which all 4 books in the series do interconnect. And at the end of the 4th book, you're going to end up back with some of the characters of the first book. So the first book in the Parallel series is Parallel. So as I mentioned, this is a time travel contemporary romance series, definitely soulmate level vibes with the hero and heroine. So in this, the heroine is Quinn, and ever since Quinn was like 4 years old, she has been dreaming or having these memories and thoughts of like this other life. She has all these thoughts and memories that she shouldn't have. She wakes up all the time telling her parents like she needs to get back, she needs to help Nick, she needs to get back to her husband Nick, and they're like you're 4 years old, like what is going on? They take her to a child psychologist and all of these things, and eventually Quinn kind of grows out of that, or I think more she stops telling people about all of these thoughts and memories that she has. So then Quinn eventually grows up, she's engaged now, and she has started having these really bad headaches, and she'll just pass out like sometimes in the middle of seeing one of these memories again. And when she comes to and wakes up, like she doesn't even remember her fiance. She doesn't even recognize her own mom. Like just all of these things going on. So her mom and fiance get worried and they end up taking her to the hospital. So when Quinn wakes up in the hospital, she actually ends up meeting her doctor, which is Nick. And yes, that Nick, literally from her dreams. And so when she wakes up, she thinks she's in that other memory with him. And so wakes up, starts talking to him like that they are a married couple. So that definitely freaks out her fiance who is in the room. And then also Nick, because he's like, who is this lady? Like, why is she talking to me like this? And then also, why do I kind of feel like I know her as well? So then we learn that Nick has also been having some thoughts or dreams of Quinn as well. He's also in a relationship at the time, so things definitely get complicated and angsty. I love this one. The angst and the whole like fated aspect, soulmates, definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat. Like all of the things happening. I was turning the pages so fast to find out what was going to happen next. I love the time travel aspect and the whole like their soulmates vibe. Like I mentioned, this book does end on a cliffhanger or sort of like is unresolved, and you're going to want to jump right into a book 2 afterwards. So book 2 in the Parallel series is Intersect. And like I mentioned, this one picks up right where Parallel leaves off. So this follows Quinn and Nick again. So I won't say too much about this because it is kind of a duet, and the events in this book do take place following the things that happen or are revealed in book 1, so I don't want to spoil it for you, but things do get explained a little bit more in this book that you start having questions of in book 1, and then you actually meet the couple for book 3 and 4 at the end of this book. Book 3 in the Parallel series is Across Time. While Parallel and Intersect, the first 2 books in the series, were like current day or present day. In book 3 and 4 of the series, Across Time and Across Eternity, we actually end up going to a different time frame. So we start in the 1980s following the heroine, end up jumping back into World War II France, which is like late 1938, I want to say, is when we jump into that time frame. So into this one, the heroine, she has a sister who has died, and her sister has been visiting her in dreams and telling her like, you need to go back and help these certain family, like the certain people, you need to go back to France and meet them and help them. So the heroine is able to time travel, and she jumps from like 1980s back into 1938 and shows up in France, where she meets the hero and his sister. She ends up living with them for a while. This one is very sweet and angsty, full of like super slow burn moments between the hero and heroine, and just a lot of banter between the hero and the heroine, you know, because she is from the future or the 80s. She's very like, you know, independent and has her own opinions type of woman, and he is from 1938, so he definitely feels or thinks a certain way of how women are usually around him. And again, this book does end on a cliffhanger, so you're going to want to jump right into the 4th book in this series, which is Across Eternity next. So Across Eternity is the 4th book in the Parallel series, and as of right now, it's the last book in the series, but I do think there are chances of some future books coming from this series. So this one, again, we are in World War II France. This one does deal with a lot of war, a lot of loss, a lot of death, just a lot of like war action in general. This one to me did feel more like love story set during war times with kind of like some bittersweet moments, but it is the conclusion for the couple of book 3 and 4. Like I mentioned, this whole series does interconnect, so eventually at the end of this book, we are back with the couple from the first book with Quinn and Nick. So Elizabeth O'Rourke's most recent series that she's still working on is the Devil series. There are 3 books in the series so far, with book 1, A Deal with the Devil. So all of the books in this series can definitely be read as standalones. They're all contemporary romances. They kind of all have hate to love vibes with banter. There is like close proximity in all of them with the different couples, but all the characters do exist in the same like friend group. You're going to meet all of the other couples in book 1. So I definitely recommend reading this series in order if you do like seeing those nods of like who's who and meeting all the characters first. This is one of my favorites from Elizabeth O'Rourke. This is actually, I think, a perfect example of her very like sharp writing. She has great wit and just just all the like banter between the hero and the heroine. So in this one, the hero's name is Hayes, and he is British, but he lives in California, and he's a plastic surgeon to the stars. And the heroine's name is Tolly. Tolly's friend is actually the personal assistant to Hayes, but is about to go out on vacation for like, I think 6 weeks. And so her friend asks Tolly like, hey, you should step in and be the personal assistant for Hayes while I'm gone. So then Tolly has actually been working as a bartender while she tries to write her debut novel. She actually got an advance on her book a couple years ago, but she is out of ideas. She's kind of having like writer's block moment. And so she's trying to make quick money to pay back the advance for her book. So when her friend tells her about this personal assistant job and how much it pays per week, she is like, yes, sign me up, like I need the money. So Tolly starts working as Hayes' assistant, and the banter was like just apparent right from the start. If you love sharp and witty characters that like definitely have that dry, witty banter, then this book will definitely be for you. In this, we get to see how Hayes has never really had anybody who cares about him or takes care of him in his life. And so Tolly becomes that person for him and starts taking care of him. She makes sure he's getting like daily veggie smoothies, he's taking vitamins, he's taking breaks or vacations from work and not overworking. Which then on the flip side, Hayes also sees how Tolly has always been the person who takes care of everyone in her life and in her family, and so he definitely gives her a break from that as well and tries to take care of her. And Tolly demands that Hayes takes like days off from work or weekends away. He actually invites her along as well and is like, well, you should join me on these little like getaway trips, and so they end up spending a lot of time together. This one is slow burn, but in the best possible way. Like the sexual tension and chemistry that's building up, like you're just on the edge of your seat waiting for this couple to finally give in, and when they do, it is so good. And the second book in the Devil series is The Devil and the Deep Blue Sea. So in this book, we follow Drew, and she's a pop star. She's very unhappy with her career choices and kind of life choices right now. And so she decides to take a break and go to Hawaii with her ex-boyfriend's family. And then the romance ends up being between her and her ex's brother. So Drew's ex ended up inviting her to Hawaii with him to kind of give him a second chance. So she decides to go along and possibly give him a second chance, but they're not back together when the story starts. So when Drew shows up at the airport in Hawaii, she realizes that her ex is actually not there. He actually ended up getting arrested or apprehended after one of his like rock concerts, something like that, and that she is just on vacation with his parents. And then her ex's brother, Josh, who is the hero of this book and who really hates her. So Drew's ex ends up not showing up for the first week of their trip, and so instead we get a lot of time of Drew and Josh spending time together. Josh's mom had just had cancer or had treatments, and so she is sick, and so she wanted a family get together with her boys and their significant others, or who she thought were their significant others. So like Drew is there, which is the ex-girlfriend of one of her sons, and so then with Josh, the mom actually invites someone who she thought was his significant other or girlfriend, but it actually ends up being just like a one-night stand type of situation that he had with somebody while at work. So while both Drew and Josh seem to be taken, they're actually not, because Drew is broken up with her boyfriend the whole time, and then Josh is not in a relationship with the girl that his mom invited on the trip for him. So it sounds a whole lot more dramatic than it actually is. And so we actually get to see a lot of Josh and Drew spending time together in Hawaii, which was a lot of fun. They go on like morning runs, and they start to realize that they have more in common than they thought. Josh has always kind of looked at Drew as just the image that he sees of her being that like pop star, and he starts to realize that there is more to her than that. Their time in Hawaii was a lot of fun to see. We get a lot of those travel moments. We get surfing lessons. They do morning runs together, and they even end up doing some island hiking, like some of them overnight trips. Drew is a famous pop star, and she is very like controlled by her management and really hates the direction that her career has taken her. Her management and all the people involved in like her contracts and stuff, they definitely take advantage of her and don't treat her nicely at all. And in this, Drew has asthma, and she also has panic attacks, which sometimes lead into one another. So her management team, instead of telling people that Drew has panic attacks sometimes, and she had one like in the middle of a concert, they tried to spin it that she is drunk or on drugs instead. So seeing the way that they take advantage of her and are trying to control her image was definitely unsettling, and you feel for Drew in the story. After their time in Hawaii together, they actually end up going their separate ways. Drew has like concert and all of her pop star events that she has to get to, and then Josh is actually a doctor, and he is serving in like dangerous parts of the world, so he has to head back to Somalia. This one I really liked. It had that same wit and banter that the first book in the series has, and then it also just felt like a more mature relationship between Drew and Josh. I really like seeing Drew's character growth in this one and how much she changes throughout the book and kind of starts to take control back of her life and her career. And I liked seeing how Josh is very protective and caring for her. He does some like super swoony moments for her, like traveling and bringing her her favorite food and things like that. And so yeah, this one is really sweet and fun. And then the third book in the series is The Devil You Know, and this one actually just came out this summer in June. So Ben and Gemma, they are both lawyers, and they work at the same firm, and they've kind of been enemies for the past 2 years. Right after they started working together, Ben kind of stole a case from Gemma, and so she has hated him ever since. So when the story starts, there are partners at their firm that are retiring, and so that's going to be opening up one spot for a partner at the firm, and Gemma definitely wants to go for it. She wants to break in to this boys only club type of work situation that she's in. So in this, Ben and Gemma end up working on a case together, and so they end up spending a lot of time together, and that sexual tension and chemistry starts to show up. So in this one, Gemma is trying to take down men, take down all these men that she's worked with and have tried to treat her as less than for years. She actually has a lot of trauma as well from her father in the past, as well as her ex-boyfriend. So she's not trusting of men when Ben shows up in her life. And this one, their relationship is very hot and cold, with Ben actually wanting more than just sex from her, and Gemma is opposite, wanting it to be a enemies with benefits situation just on its own. So that is my quick recap of the 11 Elizabeth O'Rourke books currently out. So if you ever want more of my thoughts or full reviews on any of her books, I do review every book I read, and my Goodreads is always linked in the description of all of my videos. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of these books or if you plan to. There's something about Elizabeth O'Rourke's writing and her wit that just always really worked for me. I like her kind of more possessive heroes and the relationships between the hero and the heroines, all the banter. I just eat up all of her words and can't wait to check out what she writes next. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you in my next one.